Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Crosby, and I'm so excited to be part of the Cure the Chaotic Motherhood Summit today and talk about developmental trauma, which is a topic that sounds big and scary and complex, but is actually one that really impacts the majority of us in our day-to-day lives. And I'm so excited to bring some light into this topic and talk about it with you all today. So, first, I'll start with what is developmental trauma? So, any way that developmental trauma, or there's multiple ways that developmental trauma can present or impact us. So, one way that I think about it is when a child is afraid and they seek the comfort of their caregiver because there's a threat or something that they're sensing that they need support with and need a bigger, wiser, stronger adult to be with them in that moment. So, when a child feels angry or sad or fearful, the physiological response of the nervous system or the body is to seek relational safety and rest in the caregiver's presence. However, if the caregiver is the source of the threat or sadness, then this creates confusion and disorganization in the nervous system, which can result in this unresolved emotion, otherwise labeled as developmental trauma. So, an important disclaimer again is that whether it is big T trauma or little t trauma, I'm not sure we need to differentiate between those because it is so all about the perceived experience of the individual and how the individual's body and nervous system process an event and made meaning of an event in the moment. So when we think about developmental trauma and how this disorganization and confusion can be triggered, we really want to think about it as an individual experience and one that we would need to support and heal and create resilience for in a very individualized way. So as humans, we will inevitably mess up and act in ways outside of our value system, and recognizing the child's individual signals and cues and what they may perceive as traumatic can be a really powerful way to understand when our actions have triggered sadness or fear in them. And this becomes the first step to relational repair, which I'll get to down the road. But the key in this piece is that anytime the child is afraid or sad or uncomfortable in some way and they seek the caregiver's refuge, that becomes an area where there's possible risk for developmental trauma if we aren't responding to their signals or noticing their signals in that moment in a way that causes the emotion to stay in the body and be stuck, if you will. So they say that it isn't exactly the experiences that happen to us. It's more about the ways that we perceive it and how the emotion isn't fully seen through or fully resolved. So another way that I talk about this, which is less common than emotional abuse or physical abuse, if you will, is emotional neglect and not seeing or feeling or hearing a child's emotions in the moment. So the risk in this is, for example, if a child is afraid and we totally unintentionally trying to soothe their fears might say that they are okay, or they are tough, or they will get through it, or, oh, it's fine, just get up and move on and don't think about it. If you fall, just get up and keep going. No big deal. Well, what that does is it sets up a discord in the child's nervous system because their body is saying there's a threat, something happened to me, that was scary, that was surprising, whatever the sensation was in their body in that moment becomes their experience. And if we say something different from that, then it's invalidating to their experience in their body. So there's a mismatch between what their body is feeling and what they're hearing. So anytime that mismatch again or discord happens or occurs, it sets them up for difficulty in making meaning of that sensation in their body or making meaning of the experience that happened to them. And building resilience is all about having a coherent narrative and an understanding of the mind-body connection in a way that the child can feel regulated with or calm and organized by. So, if you follow along on Instagram in my account, I talk about emotional regulation all of the time. And the reason is because this really sets the foundation and the stage for so much of what we do. So, if we aren't thinking about the child's signals and cues and reflecting that back to them in an authentic, truthful way that's accurate with their body experience at the time, it's really difficult and really challenging for that child to develop an internal compass and an internal sense of self and an internal understanding of their body in a way that really builds resilience in them. So it's something to think about next time when we're tempted, and it will happen because we are human and these are things that we're used to hearing growing up, because all of this neuroscience and research wasn't out there to help us and let us know why it's so important to validate those signals versus say it's tough, move on, move through it. And counterintuitively, this is actually one of the biggest ways to set up resilience and set up that internal toughness down the road by experiencing this and validating their experience. And we'll go through that again later. So, one thing that I'll talk about next is how developmental trauma differs from shock trauma. So, the body is going through these difficult experiences, and they are parallel in that they both imprint a survival imprint on the body. So when the body goes through this traumatic experience, we initially process the difficult situation or the shock situation or developmentally traumatic situation as threatening. Our body kind of internalizes these memories and imprints it on the nervous system as a threat. Then they can show up in related or seemingly unrelated ways and cause visceral reactions in the body and show up in various physical and emotional ways, which we'll talk about as well. So the limbic system is where our emotions and memories are stored. So they will continue to come up when we are dysregulated, meaning we are angry, we are upset, we are out of that cognitive, rational state of mind. This is when any memories or any unresolved emotions that we haven't fully made meaning of will pop up in our subconscious and impact our behavior and our actions in the moment. So one thing I talk a lot with parents about is those moments where you are triggered and you may feel intensely angry in the moment, or maybe it's been a buildup and you haven't really expressed it, and then all of a sudden it goes from 0 to 60 and there's big behavioral or action urges that come from this intense emotion that's inside. So it goes for any big emotion, not just anger, but what that's telling us is the body is communicating to us that there is stuff in there that we need to think about and we need to heal. And anger is a very protective emotion. It is a biologically essential emotion that protects us from threat, but it also can protect us from the feelings of fear, sadness, shame, and guilt underneath that were likely under that anger at some point in early childhood and didn't have safe space to express or get out there or experience or work through it with a trusted caregiver in the way that the nervous system really is demanding or needs. So thinking about when we are triggered, kind of watching ourselves and observing. And I get a lot of comments where people feel like they're out of their body or they are watching themselves and it doesn't feel like it's really them. They're flooded, if you will, depersonalized, dissociated. So all of these comments or observations are indicative that you likely have some unresolved emotion in there somewhere from an event in early childhood or at some point in life where these emotions and sensations and perspectives were imprinted on the nervous system. And it's reaching out and letting us know that these need to have attention and need healing. So our body is a really valuable way and will continue to communicate to us physically and emotionally until we can work toward integration. So the first step in this is that self-nurturing is pivotal in these moments. So these moments where we are observing that we may have developmental trauma in some way, or there may be an unresolved emotion there. It's really pivotal that we have the ability to find nurturing things for us in the moment, whether that's taking a minute and going to the next room and saying, I need a minute, and reflecting that to yourself and validating that, or finding other ways to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest nervous system. Because in the moment, your sympathetic nervous system is triggered, which is our nervous system that's the fight, flight, freeze system. So if you are raging, for example, that's likely that you're having a fight response, and that is something that's internalized in your body that has been there for a long time. So if you feel like leaving or moving away or going to that, lake house in Michigan and isolating ourselves in a cabin in the woods, it's likely we're having a flight response, and it's easier for us in the moment to run away. Finally, the freeze response, which is you feel like you want to crawl into a pillow or crawl into the ground and stay there. And you may feel shut down, you may feel immobilized, you may feel like you aren't in your body in that moment. These are all different ways that developmental trauma can present into adulthood or later on in life. So it's really valuable if we can see these and understand them in a way that will benefit us. So, other ways that it may present are various ways of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. So there's a fourth one, tendency to manage others' emotions and feel responsible if anyone around us is upset or angry or sad, because maybe growing up, it was up to us to read caregivers' cues and know if they would be reactive that day, or know if they would be loving that day, or read situations in a way that would benefit us from really surviving and thriving in those moments. And we took on different roles and personas to be the way that we thought the environment or caregivers or society expected of us. So this is something that happens all day long, is that we are, instead of regulating our own emotions and looking at our own experience, we're looking at everybody else's and managing their experiences. So we feel responsible for others. We may avoid asking for help or seeking safety in relationship when upset. We may have other numbing or less adaptive ways to attempt to regulate emotion. So overworking, drinking, addiction, perfectionism. So never wanting to get anything wrong, or never wanting to do anything out of line or out of place, wanting to look perfect, wanting to act perfectly, thinking there's a right and wrong way to do things. So black and white thinking. There may be a subconscious fear of rejection for who we really are. So you may have the sense that you're wearing a mask all the time, and that when people like you or enjoy you, it doesn't really feel authentic because you are presenting this person with a mask to them. So it doesn't feel that gratifying or that rewarding to be in a relationship or with others. There may be a fear of abandonment, which is leads to a tendency to please others so that they don't leave. It can be physical symptoms such as chronic fatigue, chronic pain, autoimmune conditions, so kind of unexplained, seemingly unrelated or random health challenges that arise because the limbic system, or the emotions and the memories, is really closely related to the immune system and the pain body and those responses. Holding tension in the body. So if you notice you're just kind of tensed up and holding a lot, if you begin to observe that different parts of your body are tense and there's tension there throughout the day. Difficulty taking a deep breath. So some may see this as anxiety. Not wanting to take up space. So this is a big one. Wanting to be small, desire to take up as little space as possible, feeling like we are a burden in some way. And again, these are all coping mechanisms or coping techniques that were developed often in early childhood as a way to not rock the boat or not get out of line in a way that may set us up for threats or may set us up for punishment or danger or invalidation or neglect in some way. So there's many, many ways that unresolved developmental trauma may appear in adulthood, but those are a few that I would think about to start. So we've talked about what is developmental trauma, how may it present in adulthood, And now we will talk about healing or setting up resilience for developmental trauma as impacting or not impacting our day-to-day lives into adulthood. So this is all about a return to safety. So the thing about developmental trauma is that it isn't about being perfect people and never having any rupture in relationships and acting in a way with kids that we never ever impact them or hurt them, because that just is not reality. And if you are trying to be a certain way constantly, one, it would be really difficult to be authentic and live our truths and be genuine moment to moment, because we would be really thinking about, again, being a certain way. And also, it isn't human. So if we are constantly adapting to every single need of the child and adapting our interaction, which is so valuable for attunement and connection and relationship and setting them up for resilience. However, it isn't saying that every single moment we will be doing the exact beneficial thing for that child. So the reality is that we will mess up and we will be imperfect. And that's part of the beauty and humanity in this experience, is that these ruptures and these relational moments where there's rifts or there's difficulty or there's challenges are actually what set us up for the deepest connection in relationships, if we acknowledge them and repair them in a way that is valuable for all. So rupture repair is all about acknowledging what happened, helping everybody around us to have an understanding of what happened and why, and any emotions that were felt throughout can be validated and acknowledged. So it's all about creating this return to safety. So maybe, for example, if you were running out the door in the morning at the top of your patient's threshold and yelled a little bit more loudly than you would have liked to, or maybe grabbed your child on the way out and it came off a little bit more firmly than you would have liked to. So disclaimer, this is very different from trauma bonding, which is, for example, a child going through abuse and then being really nurtured after the fact. So rupture repair is much different from trauma bonding, which is the same thing continues to happen. The cycle continues to happen. There's not a shift in behavior. It's more extreme, which is a judgment. It's difficult to know what that is. However, it's not saying that we get free reign to do whatever we are prone to do. It's very much about checking our patterns, adjusting and soothing, connecting and relating after a relational rupture. So something like yelling in a way that may have been perceived as scary to the child, or what else? Maybe not seeing a child's emotions, not taking the time to notice what they were noticing in a way that might have been healing or validating for them, and may have came off as neglectful to the child or hurtful or fearful. Or maybe they needed us and we weren't available for those needs in the moment. So there's a long list of ways that we can be there for kids. However, there's a long list of ways that we can also have mismatches and misattunements and create this unresolved stuff in the body and in relationships. So the goal is all about repairing and saying that you did not mean to yell as loudly as you did. And you are working on healing that and finding ways to be more helpful next time. And you can even say, I wonder what would be helpful. I wonder what you'd like to hear. I wonder how I could have done that differently. So a child has to be a different level or a certain developmental age to be doing that or going through that. But it's all about showing them that we are in this together, working on ourselves. We are attempting to shift our patterns, attempting to validate their emotion and their experience. And this did happen, and it was not an ideal situation by any means, and it did hurt them, and our actions were less or more outside of our values than they were within them. So it's all about that acknowledgement and moving forward together. So if we are in adulthood and we're going through these processes, the present moment can be a really vulnerable place to be for people that are used to living outside of the present moment as a coping mechanism. So maybe intimacy feels threatening, or we are in a state of tension and just discovering our true sense of self, and we've been in survival and not in social engagement, so we are protecting and defending and resisting. So the impacts of trauma can often do this, where it sets us in that state of survival mode. So it's more sympathetic nervous system dominant, where we may be looking for a threat, we're less likely to engage. Being with others feels unappealing because it's so much energy to do that, because you are always seeking the next threat, or really trying to keep your body safe and survive. So you're not focusing on relating and being playful and being sociable and being spontaneous and being that fun, light self that we all have within us somewhere. So safety is the way to return to our true selves. So we all have ways that nervous system integration will help us feel safe and secure. And how we do this is in adulthood or with kids is consistent, nourishing routine, emphasizing the basics. So sleep, eat, rest, play, all of those that you think about needing from infancy is this predictable, familiar routine where we really want to emphasize that consistency, and in a way that we and our nervous system can predict it, especially for kids. They really rely on the security of knowing what is happening and when, and having an interactive, meaningful joy or connection throughout their day built into their routines. So it's something that they can count on. Play and joy and meaning and laughter is another big one. So if we think about filling their cup and filling our cup with as much meaningful joy, and again, this totally varies by the individual, as a way of building their muscle and building their resilience and setting them up for success and setting that connection in a way that feels really strengthening for everybody involved. So if we can make it through those joyful moments, it's much more likely that we'll make it through the tough stuff. So the goal is gradually shifting to this authentic way of being that we are all programmed to within, if we didn't have these coping mechanisms and these survival imprints in our bodies. So it is the consistency, the routine, safety, security, going to the regular routines, cooking nourishing food, taking time to go grocery shopping and have organized space, and thinking about what truly is self-care. So maybe it seems more appealing to go get a massage, and maybe that would be really regulating and helpful for you. But thinking about, is that the most helpful? Or would it be that you are coming home and you still don't have any groceries and the house feels chaotic? So it's like you're escaping for a moment from all of that and returning to reality in a dysregulating way. Or would it be more helpful to take a walk around the block a few times and then come back and cook a nourishing meal? So what is really setting us up for success, and what really feels like long-term self-care, and what does our body and mind need in those moments? So find what you enjoy and do it often. Find the meaning in day-to-day life. Notice the intimacy in our surroundings in a way that sets up our nervous system to really soak up and absorb the beneficial ways that we can regulate throughout our day. So going through the grief process, going through anger. So I've shared about sacred anger processes and how really to get a lot of the grief of loss of security in early childhood, or loss of trust, loss of safety. There's so much that we could grieve from those moments. So anger can be the first way to metabolize it out of the body if we can do it in a healthy, adaptive way, versus a way that's really toxic to our relationships, which is what anger tends to be relationally. So resentment or blame or contempt, these are all ways that really eat up relationships. So if we can get sacred anger out in a healthy way, whether it's yelling in the car or doing body boxing, really metabolizing that anger and getting it out of the body. It's all about getting it out there. So space to grieve. So after going through this anger and metabolizing that out of the body, we really want a lot of space to grieve. And this isn't a linear process by any means, but often there will be a lot of emotions that come out, and just looking at those non-judgmentally, recognizing that there may not have been space for them in the past. So we are really going through to create space for them now, and to help that emotion integrate in the body, and to feel it, metabolize it, is the way to heal it. So knowing that we do need to feel the emotions, and they are powerful communicators and protectors in many ways. However, we don't need to stay in the same reactions over and over all through our lives. So getting to things like meditation after the fact, and you may be tired of hearing yoga and meditation, how beneficial they are. However, it really can be a way to connect with our body once you're ready to meditate, and once you're ready to be there, because that can be triggering for some individuals that aren't ready for it. So really trusting your body, seeking the help of professionals that really understand trauma and are trauma informed, that may recommend that you do body work such as somatic experiencing or cranial sacral therapy, or EMDR, exposure therapy, emotional freedom technique, play therapy, traumatic incident reduction. There's a lot of different modalities out there to support at a body level, because trauma is stored in the emotional body level. So talking about it all day long, reading about it all day long, analyzing to the ground everything that happened and why. There are aspects of that that are definitely helpful, but it can be re-traumatizing and triggering, and not get to the root of the emotional body level if we aren't willing to, or aren't able to, get in the body and feel it and heal it to release it. So really talking with somebody, or working with somebody that understands that, and understands the magnitude of the body and how it stores trauma, and how we could talk about this stuff all day long and it probably wouldn't have an impact. So there are ways, definitely, that relationship can create safety and security, and relationship can be really, really valuable when it comes to safe enough or trusted enough others that can support us in our journey. But if we just look at talking about it, it's unlikely that we can access that imprint in a way that is integrating to the body. So we went through what developmental trauma is, how might it present in adulthood, and then return to safety. So what I would say finally is getting back to not rushing, finding the space, sensory grounding. So really looking around you and looking at life and noticing what you're seeing, what you are smelling, what you are hearing, what you are feeling on your body. So feeling even things like wind on your body, it's a great sensory experience. Tactile experiences like brushing or being held by somebody that you trust, and going back to these nurturing ways that we may have enjoyed in early childhood, and also need in adulthood that we just do not get as much as we would likely benefit from them. So keeping it simple, getting back to laughter, really finding things that light you up. That is the ultimate way to build resilience, to heal, and to grow, and to share that with everybody around us. So sounds a little bit Pollyanna, but it is directly related to the neuroscience of building attention and regulation and all that good stuff that we all would benefit from more of in our lives. So I'm going to flip to a quick presentation where I show contributors, resources, and references that have really been mentors or guides for me in a way that's impacted my work. So here we go. Here's where we started. It is, what is developmental trauma and how can we prevent and heal it? And these are posts that I've shared on my Instagram account, so check that out and follow along if you're interested in learning more. Then we went through how it might present in adulthood, return to safety, so healing developmental trauma, or where to start. And these are all contributors, resources, and references. I also have a full book list if you are interested in more resources that is on my website, so check that out as well. Hope this information has been valuable to you all. Thanks so much to Cure the Chaotic Motherhood Summit for having me today. And if you would like to learn more, you can check me out on www.thrivinglittles.com. Reach out anytime via email at hello@thrivinglittles.com. I'm not the quickest responder, so have patience and shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot me multiple emails if you really need to get in touch with me quickly. However, I'm all about making space in my own life and setting boundaries. So if you don't get an email back for a day or two, that isn't unexpected. And where I'm most frequently on is Instagram at Thriving Littles. So let me know and I will see you there. All the best to you all. Thanks for your time and space in sharing with me today.